January 30, listen to me, January 30 is not just another date on the calendar. It is a divine declaration. It is the moment when heaven itself leans forward and announces, congratulations, it's all over. What is over? The fear that haunted your sleep, the delay that mocked your prayers, the invisible wall that stood between you and your breakthrough. This is not a motivational phrase meant to excite your emotions for a moment. This is a spiritual announcement meant to awaken your spirit forever. January 30th marks the end of one season and the irreversible beginning of another. And if you can hear the voice of God today, you will never walk the same way again. I speak to you not as someone guessing, not as someone hoping, but as someone who understands how God moves in times and seasons. God does not operate randomly. God does not work emotionally. God moves with precision, with purpose, with divine timing that no human power can delay or accelerate. And when God says something is over, it is not over because you are tired. It is over because the assignment has been completed. You survived what was meant to destroy you. You endured what was designed to silence you. You outlasted what came to bury you. And now God says, enough, it is finished. You are stepping forward. Many of you have been living under invisible pressure. You smiled in public, but inside you were asking God how much longer you could endure. You prayed, but answers seemed delayed. You worked, but progress felt slow. You believed, but circumstances argued back. Yet here is the truth you must hear today. Delay is not denial, and silence is not absence. God was working in dimensions you could not see, rearranging forces you could not fight, and preparing outcomes you could not imagine. January 30 is the line God draws between what was and what will never return again. Do not underestimate endings. Endings are not losses when God is involved. Endings are releases. When God ends something, He is not taking from you, He is freeing you. Some seasons lasted longer than you expected because they were training grounds. Some struggles were heavier than you planned because they were strengthening your spiritual authority. Some disappointments cut deeper than you thought possible because God was removing attachments that could not follow you into your next dimension. Now, God says, congratulations, it is all over. I want you to understand something deeply today. God does not celebrate noise. God celebrates obedience. God does not reward talent alone. God rewards endurance. God does not promote the fastest. God promotes the faithful. You are still standing, not because you were lucky, but because God sustained you. You are still believing, not because circumstances improved, but because God fortified your inner man. You are still moving forward, not because the road was easy, but because God gave you strength when you had none left. This is why January 30 matters. It is not about the calendar. It is about completion. Completion is powerful. Completion means the lesson has been learned. Completion means the test has been passed. Completion means the resistance has lost its authority. Completion means what once controlled you no longer has permission to speak into your future. God never wastes pain. God never ignores faith. God never forgets obedience. Everything you endured was counted. Every tear was recorded. Every prayer was heard. Every moment you thought God was silent, He was actually preparing your release. Some of you thought the battle was against people. It was never about people. It was about perspective. Some of you thought the struggle was financial. It was never about money. It was about trust. Some of you thought the delay was punishment. It was never punishment. It was preparation. God was teaching you how to stand without applause, how to believe without evidence, how to obey without guarantees. And now that the foundation is secure, God says the storm is over. Hear me carefully. When God ends a season, you must not negotiate with it. Do not revisit what God has already closed. Do not mourn what God has already completed. Do not question what God has already resolved. Nostalgia can become disobedience if it pulls you backward. Fear can disguise itself as wisdom if it convinces you to stay where God has already moved you out. January 30 is a divine signal. Move forward. Many people miss their next season, not because God didn't open the door, but because they kept staring at the door that closed. But closed doors are not insults. They are instructions. They tell you where not to return. They tell you where your authority has expired. They tell you where your growth has finished. God closes doors not to frustrate you, but to focus you. When one chapter ends, it is not because the story is over. It is because the narrative is about to deepen. I feel this strongly in my spirit. Some of you have been carrying emotional weight that no longer belongs to you. Guilt that God already forgave. Shame that God already erased. Regret that God already redeemed. You are dragging memories into a future that demands freedom. God is saying today, lay it down. It's over. You cannot step into what God prepared while holding on to what God resolved. Freedom is not only about what God removes from your life, it is about what you release willingly. Faith is not pretending everything is fine. Faith is trusting God when nothing looks fine. Faith is not denial, it is alignment. Alignment with what God said, not with what you see. And God is speaking clearly now. January 30 is not about survival anymore. It is about expansion. It is about elevation. It is about authority. The season where you barely made it has ended. The season where you questioned your worth has expired. The season where you felt behind has concluded. God is shifting you from endurance to influence. You must understand the difference between struggle and assignment. Struggle drains you. Assignment energizes you. Struggle confuses you. Assignment clarifies you. Struggle isolates you. Assignment positions you. What God is ending now is not your calling. It is the resistance against it. What God is ending now is not your journey. It is the unnecessary weight you carried along the way. What God is ending now is not your faith. It is the warfare. Rearound it. I speak this with authority. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are right on schedule, according to God's timing. The pressure you felt was not evidence of failure. It was evidence of transition. Birth always comes with pressure. Expansion always comes with discomfort. But pressure does not last forever. January 30 is the announcement that the pushing phase has ended. God is not asking you to become someone new. God is revealing who you were always meant to be. You were never weak. You were restrained. You were never confused. You were waiting. You were never failing. You were forming. Now the formation is complete. The waiting is over. The restraint is lifted. Congratulations. It is all over. Do not expect everyone to understand your next season. Some people only knew you in survival mode. They may feel uncomfortable when you walk in authority. Some people benefited from your silence. They may resist when you speak with clarity. Some people were comfortable when you doubted yourself. They may be threatened when you stand firm. But remember this, God did not elevate you for approval. God elevated you for impact. You are entering a season where obedience will matter more than explanation. You will not need to convince anyone. You will not need to defend your growth. You will not need to justify your decisions. When God is leading, clarity comes from alignment, not from consensus. Trust the inner witness God placed within you. That quiet confidence rising in your spirit is not arrogance, it is assurance. January 30 is the day you stop introducing yourself by your past. It is the day you stop explaining your wounds. It is the day why you stop apologizing for surviving. You are not damaged goods. You are refined. You are not broken. You are strengthened. You are not behind. You are positioned. God does not recycle pain. God transforms it into purpose. I want you to hear this clearly. What is ahead of you requires a healed mind. God is not just changing your circumstances. God is renewing your perception. Old fears cannot govern new territory. Old limitations cannot define new authority. Old mindsets cannot sustain new responsibility. This is why God allowed the process to take time. Depth always takes longer than surface level success. As you step forward from January 30, you will notice something unusual: peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because alignment has been restored. When you walk in alignment, resistance loses its grip. Confusion loses its voice. Fear loses its authority. You will move with a calm confidence that does not need validation. That peace is your confirmation that the season has truly ended. God is not calling you to rush. God is calling you to walk with intention. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to compete. You don't have to compare. What God has prepared for you cannot be taken by someone else. Divine assignments are not competitive. They are personal. Stay focused, stay obedient, stay aware. I declare this boldly. The chapter of constant struggle is closed. The chapter of unanswered prayers has concluded. The chapter of emotional exhaustion has reached its final page. Not because you demanded it, but because God ordained it. Heaven does not announce endings loudly. It confirms them internally. If you feel a quiet strength rising, if you sense clarity placing confusion, if you feel courage returning to places where fear once lived, that is your sign. Congratulations, it is all over. The season that tested your faith has completed its work. The pressure that shaped your character has served its purpose. The delay that matured your spirit has fulfilled its assignment. And now, as God opens what no force can shut, you are stepping into a dimension where favor replaces frustration, where clarity replaces confusion, where authority replaces anxiety, where purpose replaces pain, and where you no longer fight just to survive, but begin to live with divine confidence, because God Himself has gone before you, and what once held you back no longer has permission to follow you into what comes next. Because January 30 is not a date you remember, but a line you cross. And as you cross it, you will feel something break internally, not loudly, but deeply. And when it breaks, you will realize that what you feared is gone. What haunted you is silent. What limited you is powerless. And what God promised is now closer than ever. And you will move forward, not wondering if it will happen, but knowing that it has already begun. And that the old season has no voice, no claim, and no authority over you anymore, as God calls you forward into what has been prepared since before you ever knew how much strength you carried inside you, because now you stand. Not questioning, but moving, not doubting, but advancing, not looking back, but stepping fully into what God has declared. And as you move, you will understand that this moment was never about the calendar, but about the completion and the release and the authority and the freedom and the awakening and the alignment and the realization that what once felt endless has finally reached its divine conclusion. Now, this is not where your story ends, but where it finally opens into what it was always meant to become. As God continues to unfold purpose after purpose and strength after strength and clarity after clarity. And you will walk forward carrying not the weight of yesterday, but the confidence of someone who knows that when God says it is over, nothing can resurrect what He has finished. And nothing can delay what He has already released, and nothing can stop what He has already ordained. And so you move now with faith grounded, not in emotion, but in certainty, not in hype, but in truth, not in fear, but in the quiet, unshakable, knowing that God has spoken, and that what God speaks is final and irreversible and alive and working even now as you take the next step and the next breath and the next decision, fully aware that you are no longer who you were, and that what comes next is already in motion and unfolding and aligning and positioning you for a life that no longer revolves around surviving the storm, but walking forward in strength, knowing that the storm has passed and that God has already gone ahead of you into everything that remains. And now that you are crossing this line, understand this: God is not merely removing pressure from your life, God is repositioning you for responsibility. Many people pray for relief, but God prepares you for stewardship. What you are stepping into requires maturity, not excitement, discernment, not noise, depth, not display. The reason God allowed the refining to last so long is because what comes next will last longer than anything you have known before. Tempora, rise strength, could not carry permanent purpose. God had to build something in you that would not collapse under favor. You are entering a phase where your inner world must be stronger than your outer environment. Circumstances will no longer dictate your direction. Opinions will no longer shape your confidence. Fear will no longer negotiate your obedience. When God ends a season, He also ends the influence that season had over your thinking. That is why some of you feel strangely detached from things that once controlled you. It is not apathy, it is authority awakening. You are no longer reacting, you are discerning. You are no longer chasing, you are choosing. There is a difference between being delivered from a struggle and being established in freedom. Deliverance removes the weight, but establishment teaches you how to walk upright afterward. God is not just rescuing you from what was heavy, God is teaching you how to carry what is valuable. That is why your faith now feels quieter but stronger. You do not need to shout to believe. You do not need chaos to feel God. You have entered a place where trust is settled, not frantic. January 30th marks the end of confusion masquerading as humility. You no longer have to diminish yourself to feel acceptable. You no longer have to hide your strength to keep others comfortable. God never called you to shrink. God called you to stand. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking accurately about what God has placed within you. And what God placed within you was not weakness, not fear, not hesitation, but courage, clarity, and endurance forged through fire. You must understand that clarity often arrives quietly. OD does not always announce transitions with dramatic signs. Sometimes God simply removes the appetite for what no longer fits. Sometimes God allows dissatisfaction to rise, not because something is wrong, but because growth has outpaced the environment. When the ground can no longer nourish the seed, it is not rebellion to move, it is obedience. God is uprooting you gently, not violently, because the roots are strong now. Some of you are surprised by your own calm. Things that once triggered anxiety now barely move you. Situations that once demanded explanation no longer require your energy. This is not emotional numbness. It is spiritual stabilization. God has anchored you. When storms pass over anchored structures, they do not collapse, they stand as witnesses. Your life is becoming a testimony not because of what you say, but because of how you stand when pressure comes. You are moving into a season where discernment will save you more than effort ever did. In your previous season, hard work kept you alive. In this next season, wisdom will keep you aligned. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Not every open door is a God door. Not every voice deserves your attention. God is sharpening your inner hearing so that you recognize alignment instantly and resistance clearly. Peace will become your compass. If it costs your peace, it is too expensive. Understand this truth deeply. God never ends a season without already preparing the next one. Transition does not mean emptiness. There is no gap in God's economy. What feels like waiting is often alignment happening beyond your sight. While you were releasing the old, God was already arranging the new. While you were letting go emotionally, God was establishing connections spiritually. You are not behind. You are right where preparation meets promise. God is not intimidated by the size of what He is entrusting to you. The weight of the calling ahead would have crushed the version of you from last season, which is why God did not reveal it too early. Revelation before readiness can become a burden instead of a blessing. Now you can carry it. Now you can steward it. Now you can move without fear of collapse. The ending was necessary so the capacity could expand. You're also entering a phase where solitude will become sacred. Not isolation, but intentional separation. God will protect your focus by limiting unnecessary access. Some conversations will fade. Some connections will loosen. This is not loss. It is refinement. When God elevates your assignment, He also simplifies your environment. Fewer voices, clearer direction, stronger alignment. What once felt lonely will soon feel peaceful. January 30 signals the end of striving for validation. You no longer need external confirmation to trust internal conviction. God's approval is not noisy, it is steady. It does not fluctuate with performance. It rests on obedience. When you know God is pleased, human opinions lose their power. You become unshakable, not because nothing goes wrong, but because your foundation is no longer negotiable. I want you to hear. Your obedience in hidden places has altered visible outcomes. Decisions no one applauded, protected futures no one could predict. Prayers whispered in exhaustion moved realities beyond your awareness. God is not impressed by volume. God responds to sincerity. What you did when no one was watching mattered more than what you do now when eyes begin to turn. You are stepping into a season where favor will not be accidental. It will be intentional, strategic, and purposeful. God's favor is not random kindness. It is divine alignment. It places you where effort alone could never take you. But favor requires character to sustain it. That is why God allowed the process to refine you internally before positioning you externally. You are not just receiving favor, you are ready for it. Do not be surprised if your desires change. What once excited you may now feel shallow. What once satisfied you may now feel incomplete. This is not ingratitude, it is elevation. God refines desire as purpose clarifies. You are no longer motivated by escape, you are motivated by impact. Survival is no longer your goal, significance is. And significance is not about recognition, it is about responsibility. You must also prepare for resistance to return in subtler forms. When open opposition fails, distraction often tries next. When fear no longer works, complacency attempts to dull momentum. Stay awake, stay intentional. Growth does not require intensity forever, but it does require consistency. God is teaching you how to sustain momentum without burning out. Pace is becoming holy. Rest is becoming wisdom. January 30 is also the end of internal arguments. The voice that questioned your worth is losing volume. The narrative that kept you small is being replaced by truth. God's truth does not shout, it settles. When truth settles, you no longer debate your value. You act from it, you speak from it, you decide from it. Confidence rooted in God does not need comparison to survive. You'll notice that your prayers are changing. Less begging, more alignment, less urgency, more trust. This is growth. This is maturity. You are no longer trying to convince God. You are positioning yourself to agree with what God is already doing. Agreement accelerates manifestation. Resistance delays it. Your spirit is learning how to flow instead of fight. There will be moments when you are tempted to rush forward to prove the season has changed. Resist that urge. You do not need to announce transition. Fruit will reveal it. God's work is confirmed by results, not declarations. Move steadily, walk humbly, stay responsive. The most powerful movements are often the quietest at first. Some of you are being called to lead differently, not louder but deeper, not forcefully but firmly. Authority rooted in God does not dominate, it stabilizes. People will feel safe around you because you are no longer reacting from wounds. Healing has made you reliable, maturity has made you consistent, integrity has made you trustworthy. January 30 marks the end of surviving on adrenaline. You are stepping into sustainability. God is not calling you to live in constant urgency. God is calling you to live in alignment. When alignment is present, effort becomes effective instead of exhausting. You will do less but accomplish more because you are moving with God, not ahead of Him. Your testimony will not be dramatic, it will be undeniable. People will not argue with your peace. They will not debate your stability. They will not dismiss your clarity. When God establishes someone, the evidence speaks quietly but convincingly. Your life will answer questions you no longer need to explain. You are also learning the power of restraint. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Not every battle needs engagement. Silence, when guided by wisdom, becomes strength. God is teaching you how to conserve energy for what actually matters. Emotional maturity is choosing where not to invest. Spiritual authority is knowing when not to respond. This new season will require you to trust the God who brought you out just as much as you trusted the God who carried you through. Freedom requires faith too. Expansion demands belief. Just because the storm is over does not mean you stop trusting. You trust differently now, with steadiness, with assurance, with expectation rooted in experience. You will begin to recognize patterns faster, discern motives sooner, identify misalignment early. This is not suspicion, it is wisdom sharpened by experience. God is protecting your future by refining your perception. What once took months to realize will now take moments. Clarity is accelerating. January 30th, the end of internal exile. You are no longer standing outside your own destiny looking in. You are stepping fully into participation. Ownership replaces hesitation. Responsibility replaces fear. Confidence replaces doubt. God does not call observers. God calls participants. And now you are ready to engage fully without losing yourself. You will still face challenges, but they will no longer define you. They will inform you. Pressure will no longer intimidate you. It will signal growth. Opposition will no longer confuse you. It will confirm alignment. When you know who sent you, resistance loses its power to distract. As you move forward, remember this: endings handled well create beginnings that are strong. Do not rush past reflection. Honor what the season taught you without living in it. Gratitude keeps you grounded while vision pulls you forward. God is not erasing your past. God is redeeming it into wisdom. The season that required constant reassurance is over. The season that demanded proof is finished. You are entering a phase where trust is internalized, not negotiated. God has proven faithful enough times that your spirit now rests in certainty. Faith is becoming your default posture. And as this certainty settles, you will notice your steps becoming more deliberate, your words more measured, your decisions more aligned, your confidence less dependent on outcomes and more rooted in obedience. And you will move forward not with haste, but with intention, not with fear, but with awareness, not questioning whether God is present, but fully aware that God has been guiding every transition, closing every door, opening every path, shaping every moment, and aligning every detail so that this ending could give birth to a beginning that does not scream for attention, but stands firm in quiet strength as you continue forward, knowing that what has ended will never return, what has been released will not reclaim you, and what God has initiated will continue unfolding step by step as you walk into what remains ahead with steady faith and an unshakable inner, knowing that the completion you crossed was necessary for the continuation that is already unfolding even now as you breathe and move and discern and choose and advance without needing to look back, because what lies behind no longer defines the direction of your steps, and what lies ahead is already being prepared in ways you will soon recognize as this journey continues and deepens and expands in ways that do not require announcement but will become evident as time unfolds and purpose aligns and your life continues to move forward within the order and timing that God alone establishes and sustains and fulfills, as you remain attentive to the quiet guidance that keeps leading you onward into what has not yet been fully revealed but is already firmly set in motion. Now, hear this with clarity and weight. God does not end seasons casually. When God brings closure, it is because the purpose assigned to that season has fully matured within you. Some things looked unfinished on the surface, but completion is not measured by comfort, it is measured by transformation. If you are no longer who you were when the season began, then the season has done its work. Growth is the evidence, strength is the receipt. Discernment is the signature that God has completed what was necessary. You are now stepping into a phase where God trusts you with silence. Silence is not emptiness, it is intimacy. When God speaks less externally, it is often because alignment internally has been achieved. You no longer need constant instruction because your spirit has learned how to recognize direction. This is not independence from God, it is partnership with God. You move together now, not through constant correction, but through shared rhythm. There is a sacred confidence forming in you. Not arrogance, not pride, but an unmovable awareness that God has been faithful too many times to doubt now. This confidence does not make you careless. It makes you careful with what you allow into your life. You are no longer impressed easily. You are no longer persuaded quickly. You have learned that urgency is not the same as importance, and noise is not the same as truth. January 30 represents the end of living at the mercy of your emotions. Feelings will still rise, but they will no longer rule. God is anchoring you in truth that does not fluctuate. You are learning how to feel deeply without being controlled. This is emotional maturity rooted in spiritual stability. You are no longer driven by reaction, but guided by conviction. You must also recognize that God is redefining success for you. Success is no longer escape from pain, it is alignment with purpose. Success is not speed, it is sustainability. Success is not applause, it is obedience. When God defines success, peace becomes non-negotiable. Integrity becomes essential. Character becomes visible. And you will find yourself saying no to things you once prayed for because your vision has sharpened. There is a pruning happening even now, not because something is wrong, but because growth is accelerating. God removes what competes with purpose. Excess drains focus, distraction weakens clarity. Simplification strengthens authority. You are being streamlined for impact. What remains will be intentional, aligned, and life-giving. You are also entering a season where patience will be rewarded quickly. Not because everything will move fast, but because you will no longer fight timing. When resistance to timing ends, frustration loses power. God's timing does not tease, it protects. You will see why certain things could not happen earlier. Understanding will replace confusion, not all at once, but steadily. There is a deeper call emerging now, a call, stewardship of influence. Influence does not always look public. Sometimes it looks like consistency. Sometimes it looks like wisdom offered quietly. Sometimes it looks like stability that others lean on without realizing it. God entrusts influence to those who will not abuse it for ego. You have been tested in obscurity so you could be trusted in visibility. Do not underestimate the authority that comes from surviving without becoming bitter. Bitterness disqualifies. Refinement qualifies. God has watched how you handled disappointment, how you responded to delay, how you treated people when you were tired, misunderstood, or overlooked. Character was being formed when you thought nothing was happening. January 30 also closes the chapter of self-negotiation. You no longer bargain with fear. You no longer lower standards to avoid discomfort. You no longer betray your inner conviction for external approval. God has strengthened your backbone. Obedience no longer feels risky. It feels necessary. You have learned that disobedience costs more than obedience ever did. You are now able to sit with uncertainty without panic. This is a sign of trust. Trust does not need full visibility to remain calm. Trust rests in the nature of God, not in the predictability of circumstances. You are learning how to move forward without needing every detail explained. This is how faith matures. From demand for explanation to commitment to direction, expect your discernment to continue sharpening. You will sense alignment before words are spoken. You will recognize misdirection without confrontation. God is refining your inner awareness so that protection becomes intuitive, not reactive. This will save you time, energy, and unnecessary battles. You're also being taught how to receive without guilt. Many of you struggle to accept good things because hardship felt familiar. But suffering is not your identity. God is teaching you how to rest without apology, to enjoy without suspicion, to receive without fear of loss. This is healing. This is restoration. January 30 is the end of thinking you must earn rest. Rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. God rested not because he was tired, but because the work was complete. You are allowed to pause because what needed to be done in that season has been done. Rest sharpens vision. Rest protects clarity. Rest preserves strength. There will be moments ahead when the simplicity of this season surprises you. After chaos, peace can feel unfamiliar. Do not self-sabotage by searching for problems. Stability is not stagnation. Calm is not boredom. God is teaching you how to live without constant turbulence. Your faith is becoming less performative and more personal. You no longer need to display belief, you live it. Quiet consistency will speak louder than dramatic declarations. God values faith that endures over faith that impresses. You are becoming dependable in the unseen, and that is where true authority is formed. You may also notice that your compassion has deepened, not from weakness, but from understanding. You know what it means to struggle quietly. You know what it means to carry weight alone. This awareness will guide how you treat others, not with superiority, but with wisdom and boundaries. Compassion without boundaries drains. Compassion with discernment heals. January 30th signifies the end of internal fragmentation. You are becoming whole. What you believe, what you speak, and what you live are aligning. Integrity is integration. God is unifying your inner and outer life so that strength flows without contradiction. This wholeness will give you stamina for what lies ahead. You are also stepping into a season where obedience will produce momentum. Small decisions will carry unusual impact. Consistency will compound. Faithfulness in simple things will unlock greater responsibility. God is watching how you steward the ordinary because the extraordinary grows out of it. You will not need to force doors open. What is aligned will open with ease. What resists consistently is often not assigned. Trust the flow God establishes. Struggle is not always a sign of purpose. Sometimes resistance is instruction to redirect. Your language will change too. Less explanation, more clarity, less defense, more confidence. Words carry weight now. Speak intentionally. Silence will often be more powerful than speech. God is teaching you restraint because restraint protects authority. January 30 closes the chapter of living in reaction mode. You are now proactive, grounded, and aware. You respond from wisdom, not impulse. You choose your pace. You honor your limits. You recognize when to act and when to wait. This balance is not learned overnight. It is earned through experience. There will still be growth ahead, but it will not feel like survival. It will feel like building. You are no longer patching wounds. You are laying foundations. Foundations are quiet, intentional, and unseen at first, but they determine the strength of everything built on them. You are being invited into deeper trust. Not louder faith, but steadier faith. Faith that does not panic when plans change. Faith that does not collapse when timelines shift. Faith that remains anchored because it knows God is consistent even when circumstances are not. January 30 is the end of proving seasons. You no longer need to prove your worth, your calling, or your strength. God has already confirmed it through preservation. You are here. You endured. You grew. That is enough evidence. As you move forward, you will recognize that the greatest gift of this ending is clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what you will no longer tolerate. Clarity about where you are going. Confusion had a season, but it no longer has authority. You will walk with a quieter confidence now, one that does not announce itself but is felt. People will sense stability, not urgency, assurance, not anxiety, direction, not desperation. This is the fruit of a season completed well. And as this clarity deepens, you will continue to move forward step by step. Not rushing, not hesitating, but walking with intention, carrying lessons without burdens, memory without chains, wisdom without fear, trusting that God who guided you through endings is the same God who is unfolding what remains ahead, aligning paths you cannot yet see, preparing outcomes you have not yet imagined, strengthening resolve you will need later, and sustaining you not through noise or spectacle, but through quiet certainty as your life continues to unfold in alignment with divine order, timing, and purpose, moving steadily forward from what has ended into what is still becoming, grounded in faith that no longer needs constant reassurance, but rests firmly in the unchanging nature of God as you continue on this path, with awareness, steadiness, and a deep inner knowing that what was required has been completed and what lies ahead is already being shaped even now as you continue to walk forward without returning to what no longer belongs to you. Remaining attentive, responsive, and aligned as the journey continues to unfold. Now let this settle deeply within you. God is shifting you from endurance into stewardship. Endurance teaches you how to survive pressure. Stewardship teaches you how to manage blessing. Many people fail not in adversity but in abundance because they were trained only to endure, not to oversee. God took time with you because what you are about to hold requires wisdom, restraint, and reverence. Power without discipline destroys. Favor without order confuses. God has been establishing order within you so that what comes next does not overwhelm you but aligns with you. You are learning that faith is not a weapon you swing wildly. It is a foundation you stand upon steadily. When storms came before, you fought them. Now you outlast them. This is maturity. This is authority. Authority does not argue with chaos. It remains unmoved until chaos exhausts itself. God is teaching you how to remain rooted when everything around you is shifting. Roots do not rush. Roots go deep, and depth is what sustains height. There is also a recalibration happening in how you measure progress. Before, progress was visible movement. Now, progress is internal agreement. When your will aligns with God's will, motion follows naturally. You are no longer forcing outcomes. You are cooperating with timing. See, operation multiplies strength. Resistance drains it. This is why your energy feels different now. Less frantic, more focused. January 30 marks the end of borrowing courage from urgency. You no longer need pressure to move you forward. Conviction is enough. When conviction leads, you do not burn out, you burn steadily. God is replacing adrenaline-driven living with purpose-driven living. Purpose does not shout, it pulls, and you are being pulled forward by something deeper than fear or ambition. You must understand this next truth clearly. God is not only concerned with where you are going, but with who you are becoming along the way. Arrival without alignment creates emptiness. Achievement without identity creates confusion. God cares about your wholeness more than your speed. This is why your journey unfolded the way it did. You were not delayed, you were developed. You are entering a season where obedience will require courage of a different kind. Not the courage to fight, but the courage to wait. Not the courage to speak, but the courage to remain silent. Not the courage to push, but the courage to trust. Waiting does not mean inactivity, it means attentiveness. God often speaks most clearly to those who are not rushing to fill the silence. Your discernment will now begin to shape your associations. You will recognize that alignment is more valuable than agreement. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to be positioned where growth is protected. God is teaching you how to choose environments that nurture purpose instead of draining it. This is wisdom earned, not taught. January 30th also signals the end of self-doubt, disguised as humility. Doubt kept you cautious, but it also kept you restrained. God has replaced it with reverence, a deep respect for what He has placed within you. Reverence does not boast. It honors responsibility. You are honoring the calling now by showing up fully, not shrinking back out of fear. You will notice that your perspective on challenges is changing. Challenges no longer feel like threats, they feel like indicators. Indicators of where strength must grow, indicators of where wisdom must deepen, indicators of where God is inviting you to trust at a higher level. Fear once made you defensive, now faith makes you attentive. There is a refining of motive happening as well. You are learning to ask not only can I, but should I? Capacity does not always equal calling. Opportunity does not always equal assignment. God is sharpening your ability to discern the difference so that your energy is invested where it produces lasting fruit, not temporary excitement. January 30 is the closing of the chapter where confusion felt normal. Clarity is becoming your new environment. This clarity does not answer every question, but it settles every doubt. When clarity arrives, anxiety loses its grip because the need to control outcomes fades. Trust replaces tension. Direction replaces desperation. You are also being taught how to handle success quietly. Noise attracts pressure. Stability attracts growth. God often hides what he values most until it is strong enough to stand without protection. Do not rush visibility. What grows in hiddenness matures without distortion. God is not withholding recognition. God is preserving integrity. Your inner language is changing. You are speaking to yourself with truth instead of accusation. You are correcting thoughts instead of condemning yourself for having them. This is healing in action. God restores from the inside out because external change without internal agreement never lasts. January 30 ends the cycle of self-sabotage born from familiarity with struggle. Peace no longer feels suspicious. Stability no longer feels fragile. You are learning how to live without waiting for the next disruption. This does not make you naive. It makes you grounded. You are stepping into a deeper understanding that faith is not certainty about outcomes. It is certainty about God's nature. Outcomes may vary, but God remains consistent. This realization frees you from anxiety about results and anchors you in obedience. You move forward not because success is guaranteed, but because alignment is non-negotiable. You will also find that your resilience now comes with tenderness. Hardness was necessary to survive. Tenderness is necessary to connect. God has softened you without weakening you. Strength and compassion are no longer opposites within you. They coexist. This balance will allow you to lead, support, and influence without losing yourself. January 30 marks the end of living as if you are running out of time. Urgency once pushed you forward, but it also exhausted you. Now, trust sets the pace. God is eternal. Nothing assigned to you will expire prematurely. What belongs to you will meet you at the right time. Rushing only creates misalignment. You are beginning to recognize the power of consistency. Dramatic moments inspire, but consistent actions transform. God honors faithfulness over intensity. What you do repeatedly matters more than what you do occasionally with passion. Your daily alignment is building something far stronger than sporadic bursts of effort ever could. You will notice an increased sensitivity to integrity. Small compromises will feel heavier. This is not restriction, it is refinement. God is protecting your future by strengthening your conscience. Integrity is not perfection, it is alignment between belief and behavior, and alignment creates credibility. January 30 also closes the chapter of over-explaining yourself. When clarity is internal, explanation becomes optional. You do not owe everyone access to your reasoning. God is teaching you how to move in wisdom without announcing every decision. Privacy is not secrecy, it is protection. You are learning how to receive correction without losing confidence. Correction no longer feels like rejection. It feels like guidance. This openness will accelerate growth. God corrects those he trusts because correction preserves purpose. Resistance to correction delays maturity. You will also recognize that your faith now produces calm rather than intensity. Intensity was needed to break through resistance. Calm is needed to build what remains. God is shifting you from breakthrough mode into building mode. Building requires patience, vision, and consistency. January 30 signifies the end of fragmented focus. Your attention is consolidating. Distractions lose appeal. Clarity sharpens intention. God is teaching you how to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. Decision fatigue fades when priorities are clear. Your relationship with time is changing. You are no longer chasing it, you are stewarding it. Time becomes a resource, not an enemy. This shift alone will multiply effectiveness. God redeems time not by adding hours, but by aligning purpose. You are stepping into a season where gratitude will protect your heart. Gratitude does not ignore challenges, it reframes them. It reminds you of how far you have come without anchoring you to where you were. Gratitude keeps memory from becoming a chain. January 30 closes the season where you question whether endurance was worth it. The answer is now evident in who you have become. Strength has replaced fragility. Wisdom has replaced impulsiveness. Peace has replaced restlessness. These are not accidents, they are outcomes. As you continue forward, your faith will express itself less in words and more in decisions. You will choose alignment even when it is inconvenient. You will choose integrity even when compromise is easier. You will choose patience even when urgency tempts you. These choices will quietly shape a future stronger than anything built on impulse. You are learning that God's guidance often feels like gentle restraint rather than dramatic push. Restraint keeps you from missteps you would later regret. God protects you not only by opening doors, but by slowing you down when speed would harm you. January 30 marks the end of asking whether you are capable. Capability has been proven through perseverance. The question now is stewardship. How will you carry what you have been prepared to hold? God trusts you to learn this as you go, not by perfection, but by responsiveness. You will find yourself increasingly aware of subtle alignments, timely conversations, unexpected clarity, quiet confirmations. These are not coincidences. They are indicators that you are walking in rhythm. When rhythm is established, movement feels natural, not forced. Your faith is now less reactive and more reflective. You consider before you respond. You listen before you speak. You observe before you act. This does not slow progress, it stabilizes it. God values wisdom that waits for understanding. January 30 closes the chapter of emotional extremes. You are becoming steady. Joy is no longer dependent on circumstances. Peace is no longer fragile. Stability becomes your witness. This steadiness will draw others, not because you advertise it, but because it is rare. You are also becoming more honest with yourself. You no longer spiritualize avoidance. You confront what needs attention. Healing deepens when honesty increases. God meets truth with grace. Avoidance delays growth. Honesty accelerates it. As you continue to walk forward, remember that this ending was not an erasure, but a completion. You carry the lessons without carrying the weight. You remember the journey without reliving the pain. This is redemption in motion. And so you continue, not rushing, not retreating, but advancing with awareness, grounded in faith that has been tested and refined, moving forward with steadiness rather than urgency, confidence rather than noise, trust rather than control, attentive to the quiet guidance that continues to shape your steps as God unfolds what remains ahead in alignment with timing that cannot be forced and purpose that cannot be denied, as you remain rooted, responsive, and willing, knowing that what has ended has served its purpose, and what continues to unfold will do the same as you walk on with clarity, stability, and an unshakable inner assurance that the hand guiding you has never left and will not fail. As the journey continues to deepen and take shape beyond this moment into all that still lies ahead. So now, stand still for a moment. not outwardly, but inwardly. And let this question rise within you. What kind of life are you living in the presence of God? Not the life others see, not the version shaped by expectation or survival, but the life of alignment, surrender, and purpose that God has been calling you into all along. This moment is not emotional, it is decisive. You have heard enough, you have endured enough, you have grown enough. Now the responsibility shifts to you to respond. Examine your ways with honesty, not condemnation. Look at where your heart has drifted, where your focus has fractured, where your priorities have quietly shifted away from what matters most. God is not asking you to be perfect. God is calling you to be present, responsive, and willing. Willing to release what no longer serves purpose. Willing to realign where compromise crept in. Willing to walk with intention instead of habit. This is your moment to renew purpose, not by chasing something new, but by returning to what is true. Purpose is not discovered in noise. It is recovered in alignment. Draw nearer to God, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Not because you are lacking, but because you are ready. God does not call you closer to diminish you. God calls you closer to strengthen you, to steady you, to anchor you in truth that does not shift when circumstances do. Let your life become an answer. Let your decisions reflect devotion. Let your pace show trust. Let your words carry weight. Let your silence reveal wisdom. Choose to walk in a way that honors the work already done within you. Refuse to return to what God has already closed. Refuse to live beneath what has been entrusted to you. Refuse to allow familiarity with struggle to keep you from embracing stability. Move forward with a heart that listens, a mind that is renewed, and a spirit that is aligned. Walk closer to God not as someone begging for direction, but as someone committed to obedience. Let faith shape your actions. Let integrity guard your steps. Let gratitude keep you grounded. Let trust steady your journey. And as you walk, remember this deeply and carry it quietly. God has already proven faithful. God has already sustained you. God has already prepared the path beneath your feet. You are not stepping into uncertainty. You are stepping into alignment. You are not walking alone. You are walking guided. You are not starting over. You are continuing forward with clarity, authority, and purpose, fully aware that the season behind you has ended, the weight has been lifted, and the life before you is meant to be lived awake, anchored, and surrendered to God with every step you take from this moment onward.